What's your relationship with this song?
Not that many years ago, I had a huge sadness in my life. There's a huge amount of grief that's associated with something like that. The grief fades, but the sadness never goes away. And actually, you don't want it to go away. Something's broken inside you, and it's broken forever. And I find this song as a nice, comforting, reassuring in a way, reminder that life has moments like that, and you have to find a way of getting through them.
You can learn a lot about a person from their CV. Who they really are lives somewhere deeper. Often, it lives in the music. I'm Zen, concert pianist, author, and the host of Crescendo Conversations. Each episode, I invite a senior leader to share 4 pieces of music that shaped their life, their identity, and their career. Not strategy, not metrics, but the moments behind the decisions, the joy and the grief, the doubt and the conviction, the triumphs and the crossroads. And almost always, there is music that kept them company through all of it. Because I have spent all my life at a piano, living inside other people's stories through the music I play. And I know this. The music someone holds dear and near tells you intimately about who they really are. This is where high achievement meets unfiltered humanity. Some people wake up 2 a.m. on a Sunday because something went wrong. My guest wakes up at 2 a.m. because football is on. He grew up in Scotland with the football at his feet, represented his country internationally, and played professionally. Then one day, he chose a different pitch entirely. He reads voraciously, walks hills in Queenstown when world gets loud, and has written 5 books. His favorite piece of advice comes not from a business school, but from Oscar Wilde. Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. This same man spent 4 decades reshaping banking across Australia and the world, from risk management at Citibank in London to leading business banking strategy at ANZ, to running Australia's largest business bank as a divisional CEO at National Australian Bank. Then, he built a challenger bank from a PowerPoint slide, raising $1.5 billion and listing it on the ASX in 4 years, the fastest startup bank in the world to reach profitability. And then, at the height of it all, he walked away, not in defeat, but on purpose. Today, he leads Malu Health Group, a mission to make exceptional mental health care accessible to every Australian, from banking the baker, the butcher, and the brewer to healing the people behind. Welcome, Joseph. It's so great to have you here.
Oh, it's a great pleasure. I've been looking forward to this.
Joseph, you're a resident of Melbourne and Sydney and a frequent visitor of many places in the world.
Yes, I've always travelled. Ever since I came to Australia almost 20 years ago, I find myself moving between Sydney and Melbourne, mainly because of the jobs that I had. Lived in Sydney, but I worked for 2 of the major banks, ANZ and NAB, who were head officed in Melbourne. And so I really got into the habit over the years of treating both cities as home. So when people say to me, where do you live? I say, well, Sydney and Melbourne. Yes. But which one? Sydney and Melbourne. You don't have to live in one place.
Yes, I always love the saying that your home is where your heart is.
Yes, yeah, that is very true.
And we can live our heart in multiple places.
Yes, and my heart, when I think of home, I was born in Edinburgh in Scotland, but I lived quite a big part of my life in London. And when people say, well, what do you call home? I think of London as home. Because I went there actually when I was 15. And then I went back to Edinburgh, and then I went to university in London, and then I worked in London. So for me, it's a city that I relate to more than any other city. So it's home in inverted commas, but I was originally born in Edinburgh, and I still have family in Edinburgh. I've got brothers and a sister there. And I visit there 2 or 3 times a year.
Wow.
Well, I'm very proud of Edinburgh. I love the heritage of Edinburgh, the richness and the culture of Edinburgh. But yeah, London would probably, if I was pushed for one city, I'd say London.
London. Do you think when you were in your teenage years, London might be the place that formed you?
Yes, well, London is where I was educated, really. I mean, I went to school in Edinburgh, but London was just a whole new world. A big, huge city, very international, very cosmopolitan, very dynamic. A place easy to get lost in, but also a place easy to build friendships and networks. And at the beginning of my career, when you're so open to learning and you're watching and observing and listening and writing, and I was just galvanized by everything that was going on in London. And it definitely shaped, professionally, it shaped my whole philosophy to the way I work, to the type of people that I like working with. We talk a lot about diversity, but there can't be many cities anywhere in the world as diverse as London. People say London is the capital of England, but actually London, a little bit like Singapore, London is quite a unique, almost like a city country. It bears no relation to the rest of Britain.
I heard that's what people say about New York.
I think London more than New York, because London it's internet, and New York is a very global city, but London, because of perhaps by virtue of history and the role that the British Empire played in the world, the links to the Middle East, to the Gulf, to Africa, to Europe, to parts of Europe. It just seemed to me it was a melting pot of different language, different culture. But a common theme was that people came to London to build something. People came to London to achieve, to enjoy the experience. So it was a classic migrant city in that sense, which is an important theme to me, because I always think that when people immigrate to somewhere, they have aspirations in life that are different from those that don't migrate. They want to build a new life. They want to give themselves and their family something that perhaps was missing from where they came from, and they're looking for new adventures. But London, which is still true today, I always say to people, young people who are thinking about spending time overseas, I always say go to London, because it is a wonderful history, which New York does not have. It is so easy to get around the world from London. The ability to jump on a plane or on a train now and go into continental Europe, the ability to go to Africa or anywhere. It's just such a wonderfully well-located center of the world, I would say, and so many meanings of that term.
Yes, I remember London, and I went there when I was still in my late teens, and I was very excited. Probably somebody wise like yourself advised me to go, and I went. And I remember I was received by, as they joked, downtown London ambulance, because I had vertigo after a long haul of flight. So they drove me straight to the hospital, and they joked with me, well, you're not going to forget this trip, are you?
Perhaps not the introduction to London.
I can already tell, Joseph, the journey that you're going to share with us is going to be so rich and interesting and full of twists and turns and eye-opening moments. Let's listen to the first song. The first song I invited you to choose, and it's about the origin, your origin, where it all began, before the titles, the achievements, and the spreadsheets.
Yes.
Shall we?
Yes.
it's very hard to stop music. Tell us about the first song, Joseph.
Well, it reflects my heritage, where I grew up in Scotland. It reflects my deep pride in being originally Scottish. It reflects my deep pride in the contribution that Scotland has made to the world for such a small country. I mean, its population today is around about 5 million people, but in so many aspects of life, particularly perhaps in the 18th, 19th, and early 20th century, the Scottish contribution to the modern world exceeded that. Perhaps the only other small country that could rightly claim to have made such a great contribution is ancient Greece. But outside ancient Greece, I think the Scots' contribution to the world that we enjoy today is something of enormous pride. It also plays to my sense of the underdog. That the Scots are a small country, overshadowed by a large country in England with a population of 10 times, close to 50 million. And a country, the relationship between the two historically has not been a friendly relationship. It hasn't been a violent relationship. It was many centuries ago. But the Scots always felt that they were treated as a poor cousin and that they had to fight and stand their ground to get the recognition that they deserved. And that sense of underdog appeals a lot to me because you have to work harder and you have to demonstrate a resilience. And there's another word that comes to mind when I think of the song, and that is passion. I am by nature a really passionate person, that when I get behind something, an idea, a business, or whatever it might be, I get really quite passionate about it. You know, whatever I do, if I'm writing a book or if I'm building a business or I'm with people, I think having a passion for something helps give life a real sense of purpose and meaning. And it also helps you when things are not going to plan, which of course happens a lot in life. But that passion and the vision that sometimes accompanies a passion can guide you and give you the courage and strength and the belief and the confidence to keep going at whatever it is you're pursuing. So the song captures a lot of things for me, but more than anything else, a deep, deep, deep sense of pride in Scotland as a country and what it has achieved, and the reputation that it had developed over, many, 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 many centuries.
So pride, underdog spirit, and a strong passion. Would you like to share with the audience the name of the song?
It's called "O Flower of Scotland," and it is the unofficial national anthem of the Scots. I mean, the official national anthem is "God Save the King," which is this national anthem of Great Britain. But the Scots, with a very distinct identity and a history that, as I've described, has been a history where they, in many ways, have been the underdog in their relationship to their bigger neighbour, have always believed strongly in the contribution that they've made and who they are and what they stand for. And even though Scotland had submerged into the United Kingdom in 1707, if I got my dates right, it didn't change the strength of the identity, and that's why I think that strong sense of identity is, for me, is really, really quite important. And when I meet people today and they talk about Scotland, or ask me where I'm coming from originally, I always feel a great sense of pride when I say Scotland, because I think it has achieved a lot. And I think about one of the great figures in my life, Adam Smith, who is widely regarded as the founding father of economics. And Adam Smith was born in Kirkcaldy in Scotland in 1723. and made such a huge contribution to the world. I mean, arguably wrote the most influential book ever written on how economies and society works when he wrote The Wealth of Nations. So I could talk all day long about Scotland and its contribution, but the great quality that I took from my Scottish heritage is the sense of confidence and self-confidence that you come from a country of great tradition, of strong identity, of great achievement, and a huge contribution that it's made to the world. And my career was in banking up until recently, and the Scots were regarded all around the world as being amongst the best bankers. They were called the canny Scotsman, which was, someone who's careful with their money.
Yes, definitely have a track record.
Yeah, track record. Sometimes a bit unfair, but I quite enjoy that. But the Flower of Scotland is a song that whenever I hear it, it sends a shiver down my spine. It's a song that Scots sing at all the major sporting events, whether the rugby or soccer or whatever event it might be. Everyone sings it with an enormous sense of pride in who we are as a nation, despite the fact that we have been, a part of Britain for centuries. It doesn't change the fact that we're a very strong and proud nation that's made a wonderful contribution to the world that we all live in today.
That sense of pride is so evident in the composition itself and the orchestration or the band arrangement as a musician. That's a musician's comment. But also, I watch the way at different occasions people sing and people chorus. It is very infectious and very powerful to witness. And personally, I believe identities evolve. We are all born with an identity. Often it's the identity of our family, our cultural construct, and then we evolve, depends on our personal journeys. So this strong sense of Scottish identity, Joseph, when was that moment in your life you realized, I'm Scottish, I am a proud Scottish?
Well, it would have been around about the age of 14 or 15 when I was very passionate about my soccer, or football as it's called in Europe. And I was actually a pretty good player. And I was selected to the national team, to the Scotland's youth team, under 15 and under 16. And that was the chance to put on the national blazer and tie and shirt when we went off to games, and then to put on the dark blue shirt of Scotland, and to feel that you were representing your country at a very young age. And also to think about the history of the great football players that had played in that same team and had gone on to great things. And so I felt that that was the first time I can remember when I thought, yes, because once you've got an achievement like representing your country, you may go on to do a whole lot of other things in life, but that is something that no one can ever take away from you. And at 15, I think I was around just come at 15, that was the first time that I'd really tasted success, because there was lots of competition to get into the national team. There was only 14 people selected from all around the country after months of trialing and games. And so that sense of achievement was quite defining for me, because I felt that I always knew that I was a good player, and I always knew that I was a hard worker. But there were other boys in the team who were much more gifted than me. But I didn't feel in any way inferior to that. I always really enjoyed working and surrounding myself with gifted people. And being in the company is I think, a huge compliment and achievement. And so I think that sense of, if you work hard, put to good use the talents that you've got. Some will have more talents than others, but the defining factor in life in my opinion, between people that are really successful and those that don't realize their potential is hard work. Hard work. Some people, a very small minority of people, are so hugely gifted that they don't have to work hard. But you're talking about 0.00001%. There are lots of people that have got some form of gift, and then there's a smaller amount of people that are willing to take those gifts and work hard at perfecting them, or at least improving them. And I think that's a philosophy that even today, and whatever I do, I'll say there's more I can do to improve my decision making. There's more I can do to improve the way that I hire people, or the way that I motivate people. So I think that sense of life is a journey of constantly working at the success you've been able to build, but never taking it for granted and never allowing it to fall into a state of disrepair.
The hard-working spirit is so important to feel the gift we are given.
I think it's critical. And when I see people that have talents but are not willing to work hard, I always feel, what a waste. And they might say, well, I don't want to work hard. I'm happy with what I've got. But you think, but you could do a lot more. You could be much better. And imagine the sense of satisfaction from realizing the potential that's within you. Imagine performing at a level you never thought you could perform at. Imagine achieving things that you never dreamt that you could achieve. Imagine living a life where you fulfilled the potential that's within you. And I always believe that we all have some gift. And it's unique to each of us. And knowing what that gift might be, of course, is really quite important. But once you realize that you have a gift, then you've got to work at perfecting it. And not living a life of regret, of saying, gosh, I wish I had done that, or I wish I had worked harder. So I find that I get disappointed with people that I see are talented, but not willing to work hard at their talents. And I do genuinely believe that inside each of us, there's something we are very, very good at.
Yes, I think everyone carries talents and gifts inside of them, but the lucky a few get to use them. And that's passion is really important, Joseph. That's what you were sharing before. Having passion for what you do. I know that word is often overused.
Yes.
But in the purest sense of it, it is essential in not only making the good times work, but also the hard times. Still, you can persevere. You can push through, and the passion is the driving force of many of our successes.
Oh yes, and also it's infectious. Because there is nothing more exciting than listening to someone who is clearly passionate about what they are doing, particularly if you're part of their team. And their job is to influence you to follow a particular strategy or path in life. And you listen to them talk with real energy and real passion about what it is we are doing and why we're doing it and how we're going to do it. And also knowing that people that are with real passion are often people with deep resilience. That when things are not working well, then they can dig deep. And that resilience will help them work through whatever impediment or challenge or obstacle that might be in front. And again, as someone who might be being led by someone else, you're looking to that leader to have those qualities. The leader can say, this is a journey, we're going to build something very special. And here's what it's going to look like in 5 to 10 years' time. We're going to start with nothing, but this is how we're going to build it. We're going to spend a lot of time planning what we're going to do. We're going to measure twice, cut once, which is one of my favorite philosophies in life. Be careful early on in building a strong foundation. Not everything that we have planned is going to go to plan. We can be certain of that, actually. We can be certain that for things that are within our control or things that are outside of our control, things rarely go to plan. But the vision and the purpose behind what you're doing never changes. Never changes. Now, when you're listening to a leader who's articulating a business or a venture in life with clarity as to what it is they're seeking to build, and clarity around the reasons of why and how they're going to do it, and with a strong sense that no matter what obstacles come our way, we will manage our way around those obstacles and never lose sight of what it is we're trying to do. When someone is talking like that, there's a strong sense of purpose and a strong passion behind it.
And certainty.
And in my mind, you'll always get behind someone like that. Whereas if it's a little bit wishy-washy and, well, let's see how we go, if we get to here, we might then get to somewhere else. In fact, one of my favorite sayings from China was the saying of Deng Xiaoping when he took over the leadership in the late 70s, when he was embarking on the big reform program in China. He said that the reform program is like crossing the river by feeling for stones. In other words, he said, I don't know how we're going to get there. We have to feel for stones as we're walking across this river. But we are on a journey to a better future with much uncertainty as to how we're going to get there. Now, there was also there was a wonderful authenticity about that reality, that it's not going to be easy. It's going to be lots of uncertainty, but we're going to get there by feeling for the stones as we cross the river. And there is nothing wrong with that, because again, with that clarity of we're building something special and different, a better future, people can galvanize, people can get behind that. And the passion and vision is there.
This reminds me one of the quotes that was shared by one of my previous guests, Professor Paul Kelly. And one of his favorite quotes is, "The future is bright, but the path is uncertain."
Well, that's exactly what Deng Xiaoping was saying in his own way. It's an uncertain path, but the future is bright.
Yes, Paul did share that quote came from the Russians,
right?
And that's a different conversation.
Yes.
Joseph, you painted this picture of yourself going to London when you were in your formative years, 15. You were saying 15.
Yes.
And at the time you were also playing for Scotland national youth team.
Youth team, yes.
Of soccer. What a time of your life. So who was Joseph Healy when you were a little boy?
Well, I'm the oldest of 5 children. In what would be called a working class Scottish family. My father was in the construction industry. My mother was a homemaker. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had enough money. I used to spend a lot of time during the summer months, June through to end of August in Ireland, in the northwest of Ireland, with my grandmother. But one of the things about being the oldest in a family is you learn to take on responsibility really quite early in life. I mean, you're the star for a very short period until the rest turn up. And and I had I was three brothers and a sister. But you become quite independent in a way, almost as a kind of natural survival thing that your parents have to look after the younger children, and you very quickly grow up. I think so. It's a strong sense of independence, and I should say that I was lucky that I lived in whilst it was a modest family in a financial sense, it was a very warm and loving family. And I know now in later life, when I think about mental health, how lucky someone can be to live, to have grown up in a loving, caring family environment, even though the other kids were pushing you out of the way for attention early on. So I was always independent in that sense. I loved soccer. I couldn't get enough of soccer. So that was, I lived and breathed that. I enjoyed, being part of a team. And when I think about leadership later in life in business, the importance of teamwork and building a strong team, the emphasis on we instead of I. I go off people when they talk about I did this and I did that in a team setting. I think the power of the team is so important. So I enjoyed teamwork. I learned a lot about how teams work, how to deal with disappointments as well, because you don't win everything in life, but you cope with that, and you know that you want to get back in and see if you can win the next time. But soccer was the big passion for me. And when I was good at school, but not hardworking, because I saw my career as a soccer player. And
your eggs were put in that basket at the time.
Yeah. But I think, as I mentioned earlier, I knew that I was good, but I also knew that I wasn't great. Because I could see boys around me who were better. And so I knew the difference between good and great, which has held me well through life, actually. But the soccer thing came to a bit of a disappointing end. I mean, I was at a couple of major English soccer clubs, 15 and 16. But I realized that the prospects of having a soccer career were going to be difficult because I could see the talent around me. But then I was also quite, even though I didn't work hard in an academic sense, I had a strong interest in academia. Ironically, I was always a reader and interested in economics and politics. So I went back to finish off school, do my higher qualifications, and then to university. And then my life really since then on has been one of lifelong learning with a strong and deep interest in academia. But I often think, could I have made it as a soccer player had I stuck at it and worked harder and been true to the values that I mentioned earlier around resilience and hard work? But actually, on reflection, sometimes those decisions you make early on, reading the tea leaves, if I can use language like that, are the best decisions you ever make. And certainly in my case, I don't have any regrets. I'm thinking about people, talking to people in interviews, for example. If I was trying to hire someone, I would explore that aspects of, how well comfortable do they feel working in teams, and what history do they have, what's their background. not that I make a decision based on that criteria, but it can be quite an important insight in how well people work. So, it's from soccer into banking, which is where I went after university. And then a quite a rich career, a wonderful career in banking in 5 or 6 different banks, different parts of the world. I feel as if the gifts that I was given, I worked hard at developing.
It sounds like there's a lot of your values and learning that you collected from the little soccer pitches in Scotland when you were a young lad.
Well, I think competition, that you learn in sport that you're competing with other people. You're competing with other people to get into the team, and then you're competing to beat your opponents.
You're also competing with yourself. You need to be better than yourself yesterday.
Yeah, you're competing with yourself because there's always someone else looking at you thinking, I could do what he is doing better. And so competition, that sense of having to, being in a competitive environment is something I flourished on, really enjoyed it because it forces you to grow. You do things that you might not otherwise have done. You work harder than you might otherwise have worked. So competition was a big factor for me. The joy of winning. And there's lots of things that are equally enjoyable, but the adrenaline rush of winning something, the managing and coping with the disappointment of losing, but knowing there's always tomorrow, which is true in life. I mean, in business, you sometimes win and sometimes you lose. But when you lose, you think, okay, what can we learn? How can we improve? And there's always tomorrow. And so in life, you want to win a lot more than you lose. And that's something that, that winning mentality, competitiveness is definitely a big part of my DNA.
I can hear that. And just before we move on to the next song, would you share with us what are the important values mom and dad always try to instill in you and your brothers and sister?
Well, I think one of honesty, one of respect for other people, one of looking out for other people. So a strong. My parents were quite religious in a Christian sense, and the honesty, the helping others, the sense of humility that never try to present yourself, no matter how you might feel inside, as being any better than anybody else, and to treat people the way that you would want to be treated. And so, these are values that are not necessarily constrained to any particular religion. They're very strong values.
Pride without pretension.
Pride, and humility. That you're not over boasting about things and being modest and I think a strong element of humility, of community. That we lived in a very close community. People came in and out of your house without knocking on the door or without an invitation. But you felt that if there was ever anything that you wanted to talk about, it was easy to go and talk to someone, and that people took an interest in you, sometimes too close an interest in you that they knew what you were doing all the time.
The second song is about the interior, and it's about pressure, loss, and change. Let us listen to it first. by the tune and the words. I am on your side. Every time when I hear those words, I get quite emotional. I think we all have, so many of us have a relationship with this song.
Mm.
What's your relationship with this song?
Well, I had a time in life, not that many years ago, where I had a huge sadness in my life, and that song was quite soothing. Not just the words, but just the melody was quite soothing. And that sadness was I lost my son, one of my sons, unexpectedly and in difficult circumstances, in that he was in the United States, and it was very sudden. And of course, that changes your life forever. There's a huge amount of grief that's associated with something like that, but the grief fades, but the sadness never goes away. And actually, you don't want it to go away. Or at least I, speaking personally, don't want it to. Something is broken inside you, and it's broken forever. And so, and obviously as a parent, I reflect on that quite a lot. And the song I always find I reflect on it almost every week. I find this song as a nice, comforting, reassuring in a way, reminder that life has moments like that in it, and you have to find a way of getting through them. So that's a somewhat sobering song, but to the point that you've made, that it's a song that so many people can relate to for a whole range of different reasons. But it comes to mind for me when I think about that personal loss when I lost George. And just how do you cope with it? How do you reconcile your feelings, and how do you manage yourself? So that's rather sobering.
That's such a powerful story, Joseph. I'm also a parent, and we all deal with sadness in life and losses. And the loss of your own child at a time that this song kept you company. And I found music often is like nature. Every time when you visit it, you get something different out of it.
Yes. Yeah. I think a loss such as the one that I just mentioned is people find it really difficult to talk about it. I mean, talk to you about it, because they're not quite sure what to expect. People will always say, "I'm sorry for your loss," but that can quite often sound quite perfunctory. But it's polite, but it's a difficult thing to talk about, and so sometimes you go to music to find a companion or words that others might want to say to you but don't feel able to or comfortable in saying to you.
So did this song find you, or you accidentally found each other? I
was aware of the song long before the event that I mentioned, but I always enjoyed the song. I always enjoyed, and Simon and Garfunkel are almost ageless in the beautiful music that they sing. In many ways, I was searching for a song, and this was one. There is another one which we're going to come to later. But this is one I can play, whenever I feel I want to reflect on George. The music helps.
This, again, everyone's relationship with music is different, and with this piece of music also is different. For me, this piece of music bridge over troubled water is so soothing, but yet it describes the sadness and the adversity as if it's written for you, for me,
Yes.
for the person that's listening. But yet while you're listening, it's like that sense of community you were talking about before. You feel that suffering is shared by other people before you and around you.
That's an excellent point, because as I mentioned, people feel awkward or find it difficult to talk about the loss of someone else's child. I think with a parent, it's people feel more comfortable about talking about a parent, but when someone has lost a child, you're never quite sure how to almost tiptoe around the topic.
How they want to talk about it.
Yeah. And so many people do want to talk about it, and they want to put, so to speak, an arm around you, but they don't feel invited to do that. And also, it's not something that comes naturally to. It's not something that you talk about on a regular basis. And it's also, how to talk about it, how to not offend someone or make them upset, or to come across as insincere, because there's nothing worse than someone expressing condolences when you know it was quite a shallow.
Also,
thing.
people don't want you to receive it as a pity.
Correct, yes. Yeah. So you're right. So the song in many ways also reminds you that there are people who would really love to talk to you about it and help you, but not very few of us are equipped to do that well. And that's the wonderful power of music, I think. I've never met anybody that hasn't heard that song. And it's a song, when I relate to it for the reasons that I mentioned, but you can relate to it for a whole range of other reasons, because, in life, not everything goes the way you want it. And dealing with, upsets, it can be a broken marriage, it can be the loss of a dear friend, it can be, a whole range of
loneliness.
Loneliness being a great example. And a song like that can be quite comforting.
Do you find even sometimes listening to the same song after you have processed the grief and then remembering how grief felt to you at that time, that's also a very powerful experience?
It is a very powerful experience. It does, as I say, for me, remembering and on a regular basis reflecting on that major event, that great sadness, is that I actually feel stronger as a result. It brings you back down to a moment in time when there was just darkness. But it also reminds you that you've come out of that. And it reminds you want sometimes to be able to feel it again, because the loss was such a huge loss that you never want to forget it.
And you will always hold dear.
You hold it dear. But you get stronger over time, you see, and that's in terms of your coping mechanism, the way you cope with it. But it brings you back to that time. Because in life you always want to try and remember the great happiness, the great highlights of life. But I do feel that you should also remember and feel again some of the real deep lows to keep you quite grounded in things.
Put things into perspective.
And for me, I say to people when I listen to their situation and their circumstances, and I even when I think about my own circumstances from time to time, I say to myself, nothing is ever going to be as dark and bad as that. Nothing. And I don't want to diminish other people's experiences, and I don't say that to them. I say it to myself. I think, no matter what happens in the rest of my life, nothing is ever going to feel quite like that loss.
Mm.
And there's something, it sounds a bit morbid, but there's something quite reassuring in that you've dealt with the worst thing that could possibly ever happen to you.
Mm. I think Nick Cave shared something very profound. Several of his much-loved songs also are about the loss of his son as well. And he shared the immense darkness one feels, and then the growth that one also, it's also a part of the journey.
Yes.
So to be able to talk about that and frame the situation, it's a major growth. And the sadness is still there. But it's a very powerful experience, and also powerful for people to respectfully listen to how you frame it as well.
Yes, well, thank you. It does make you such a much stronger person. As I say, in part because if you can cope and get on with life.
Mm.
And I know, I'm talking here about my situation. I'm not unique in that many other parents have lost children, or parents have lost partners. That happens in life. So, and each person deals with it quite uniquely, I feel. There's some common ground, of course, about the deep grief that's attached to it. But then to what extent it defines who you are going forward is unique to you as an individual. Do you say that I've coped with this and I've got on with my life? It's made me stronger. It's made me more appreciative of how fragile life can be. I mean, we've heard people say that so often in our life, that life is fragile. And you kind of listen, you think, that's okay, I get that, but it's very abstract. It's very abstract until it hits you. And then you think, actually, it's so true. So enjoy what you have. Make the most of it. Because some other people have not been as lucky to have enjoyed, a longer life.
And also to turn heartache, sadness, grief into a learning journey.
Absolutely. It is, absolutely. You learn so much about yourself.
And the force of nature.
Yes.
And yes, the potential we have,
yes.
even when we are at the most bottom.
Yes. And yeah, it makes you stronger.
The third song, let's listen to this first.
So if you don't mind my saying, I can see you're out of aces. For a taste of your whiskey, I'll give you some advice. So I handed him a bottle and a drink down my last swallow. Then he bummed a cigarette and asked me for a light. And the night got deathly quiet, and his face lost all expression. Said, if you're gonna play the game, boy, you gotta learn to play it right. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, and know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting.
You never count your money when you're sitting at the table.
Yeah.
Know when to hold and know when to fold. Tell us about the song, Joseph. We're both smiling.
Oh, well, yeah, because that song, I love the song, obviously. I have an entrepreneurial gene. I like taking risks and building businesses, whether that's building businesses within large banks or starting new ventures like a new bank or a new mental health company. I like doing things that are new. And that involves risk-taking. But I like risk. I like the thrill of risk. You might say, gosh, I thought you were a banker. Bankers don't take
You're a challenger banker.
I like the thrill of risk-taking, but calculated risks, sensible risks. In other words, I wouldn't take a risk that could wipe out everything I had or destroy everything I had.
So the goal is not to risk. The goal is to gain while managing the risks.
Managing the risks and knowing what your tolerance for risk is and when to stop and not to count your money at the table.
And knowing where your boundaries are gives you great freedom.
Yeah, it gives you great freedom. But also the risk appetite. And again, we're all very, very different. And people with a good risk appetite, with a risk appetite for taking on new ventures, for building something, for moving country, starting all over again. Those are quite unique qualities. They're not common. And so my personality has always been about taking risks, about trying to do something different, something bigger and better. It goes back to my point earlier about constantly trying to seek improvement. There comes a point if you keep on doing the same thing, then the margin for improvement becomes less and less and less. Whereas if you say, now I've exhausted this, or I've done as much as I feel I'm satisfied with, now let's try something else and let's start a whole process over again. And when in business, for example, the statistics say that 95% of all new businesses fail. And therefore, the one part, your rational part of your mind would say, well, why would you ever try to do that? Why take a risk like that? But then the other side of you says, well, actually, I believe strongly in what I'm trying to do. I've done my homework. I know there's a risk of failure, but I think I can manage that risk. I know when to hold my aces and when not to hold them. And I know when to stop and when to go. And so that song reminds me of the skills and experience and wisdom that you build up in knowing when to go and when not to go, when to take risk and when not to take risk. And it applies, again, in so many different ways in life. But it appeals to me because it sings to my heart. In that I enjoy risk-taking. I'm not a gambler, actually, so I wouldn't go to a casino, or I can't remember when I ever bet on something, but I like taking a risk on something that I feel I understand and something that I have a strong passion for and a strong sense of purpose. Then I'll say, look, let's say I had $100 and I could live comfortably for the rest of my life. But there was something that I wanted to do that I felt could really make a difference. But it required me to invest $50 of my 100 in order to get it going. And there was a high chance of it, if I lost, then it was going to change me and my family situation. I'm more inclined to take that risk if I know what it is I'm doing. I'm not a punter in the sense of throwing money on the roulette table and seeing what the numbers turn out to be.
Yeah.
But if I say, like, there's a business chance here, a model here that we could build, I know how to do it. I know there's lots of risk attached to it. I know that if it fails, it's going to really hurt me. And the comfort and wealth that I'd built up to enjoy life will have been wiped out. I will take those risks. But with the benefit of really knowing what I'm doing, with the benefit of doing my homework properly, of measuring twice, cutting once, or the benefit of making sure that I've got all of the resources that I need, particularly people around me to do it, I don't hesitate on those sort of opportunity, on those sort of risks. So that song reminds me of the fact that I actually do enjoy risk-taking, but in the context of what I've described.
What you have described, there are so many paradoxes. It's just like the song is so poignant, sharp, yet funny and cheeky.
Yes.
I have my personal theory that I've enjoyed dwelling on in my own head over the years. I believe for every risk taker that is measured, ultimately it shows they're confident, but not naive, not Don Quixote kind of naivety, but they're confident, often not about the situation. They're confident about their own abilities, and they're optimistic about life and what it brings and returns.
Yes, and also they don't want to. It goes back to a comment we talked about earlier on about realizing your potential or fulfilling your potential, and not living a life of regret. Because if there's a thought that haunts me a little bit, it's the idea that at some stage in the future, as I'm looking back over my career, that I say to myself, I wish I had done this, or I wish I had done that. The prospect of having that regret is something that horrifies me, actually, haunts me. And so I don't want that. And so I would prefer to say, look, I've done the things that I wanted to do. I've achieved some success in those things. I had a successful career as a banker. I was a good young soccer player. I had a passion for writing, and I've written 5 books. I've got a passion for learning and education, and I've studied for 6 master's degrees.
And you didn't settle with comfort.
I had made a decent amount of money. I could have been touring the world for the rest of my life. But I'm not made that way. I like looking for the next gamble.
Growing opportunity.
The growth opportunity dressed up as a gamble.
There's so much wisdom, measure, and passion in what you have just shared, Joseph.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. Look, I think when I say gambling, I mean, that's the song is rich in wisdom about all aspects of life, about knowing when to throw them, knowing when to stop, knowing when to walk away. You know, that's just so, that wisdom is so, an instinct is so important in life. Not everybody has that, but it's so important. And the other thing kind of linked to that, if I can just say that, is it goes to the question of reputation. You know, that when you're taking risks in certain things, you're also putting financial aspects to one side, putting relationship aspects to one side. You're also, in a lot of walks in life, you're putting your reputation at risk in starting something or doing something that could. We don't have a culture here in Australia that celebrates the entrepreneur's failures. Yeah. It's quite a common thing in the United States. You know, you say, I tried 5 businesses that failed, but I've learned a lot, I'm going to go again. Failure here is kind of looked down on as, you know, inadequacies, which is not always the case. So the reputation for me is quite an important thing as well. When it goes to you've got to know when to throw them, you've got to know when to hold them.
And when to run.
And you've got to know when to run.
And the last song is about the horizon. What is the future holding for Joseph? Let's listen to this song. Well, Joseph, this song is to talk about the future, and he chose a song that's about history. Walk us through this, please.
Well, because I think when you think about the future, appreciating what history or the lessons of history can be very, very important. And so when I think of the Billy Joel song about all of the events in the history and you know the theme of the song, "We Didn't Start the Fire," we're facing a whole set of turbulent global circumstances today.
Mm.
But the song reminds me that this has actually been the case forever in different forms. And so you can't dwell on what is happening externally and assume that it's unique to the world that we're in today. The fact is that the world has always been on fire, in inverted commas, and that you have to face that reality and navigate your course in that environment, and not to allow the environment to define what you're going to do. So it's a mixture of, you know, when I hear people say, well, AI is going to change the world, and look at the wars here and the wars there. Well, we've been through this so many times in history. There's always been villains, you know. We've got a villain today as the President of the United States, but he has a long track record of bedfellows who've, you know, preceded him. But you have to accept the world as volatile, turbulent. There are periods of calmness, but you've got to say that those periods of calmness are always going to be peppered with periods of turbulence and volatility and uncertainty and anxiety, and accept that as a reality, and then plan your course of action, and not to dwell on things that you can't control. So that's the big message from that song for me is, yeah, the world is a mess. And not that I think it's a mess, but the world's got so many problems, but it's always had so many problems. And with problems, there are opportunities actually to seize those opportunities. So it brings me, for me, it comes right back to feet on the ground. The external environment's nothing you can do about it. It is volatile, but it always has been. Think about what you're going to do in that environment, and follow your dreams, follow the passions that you have, and fulfill the potential that you have within you, and achieve what you want to achieve, regardless of the external environment. So that's what that song means to me.
That sounds very like a piece of Stoic principle, and control what you can control.
Control what you can control. There's always going to be noise around you, and I mean, if there is something that is different today than it has perhaps been in the past, it's just the sheer volume of media and the sensationalization and misinformation that bombards our lives every day, and how easy it is to be influenced by that, whereas you shouldn't allow yourself to be influenced by it. You should take note of certain things, but remind yourself, as I do, that this is not unusual, and control what you can control, and adapt and adjust as you might have to whatever. So if, for example, we're in the midst of, you know, fighting in the Middle East today, and you can't fly to certain parts of the world. So if you want to fly to London from Melbourne through Abu Dhabi or Dubai, that's not easy. So then you say, okay, I'll have to fly through Singapore, or I have to fly through, you know, Turkey or somewhere. So you adapt to those circumstances, but you don't allow that the noise and the external events to define and shape what you're seeking to achieve in life. You've got to take responsibility for that yourself. And you in my case, I always going back to an optimism about opportunities and things that you can make happen in life,
Mm.
and be guided by that rather than all the noise that surrounds you.
Mm. Sounds like you've got a strong sense of a clear set of values and a strong sense of inner compass.
Yes, I think so. And I go back to my earlier comments about my childhood, being the oldest of a family of 5. You learn to take responsibility really quite young, and it's something I think a lot about, actually. Because if anything that does worry me today is the unwillingness of so many people to take responsibility. Partly it's because of government, because we have governments now so big and so widely touching on so many aspects of life that people think, well, if things go wrong, I'll go to the government for help. Whereas I was brought up to say, you have to take responsibility for yourself. And if you take responsibility for yourself, then you can start taking responsibility for other people. But you can't look after your family and be responsible for your family if you're not responsible for yourself. And when you make big decisions that go wrong, you have to own them. You take ownership of them, And so that is that essence. Focus on responsibility is really important. And there's an old Oscar Wilde saying, I'm paraphrasing, you've got to like or love yourself because everybody else is taken.
Yeah.
And it is so true.
Yes.
That you've got to feel, none of us are perfect, of course. And there's always something that about our physical or mental state that we would love to change. I would love to lose 5 or 6 kilos. Now, I then say, when I say that, I say, hey, hold on a second. That's your responsibility, because it's my actions that shape that, not no one else's. So owning, being who you are, loving who you are, being true to yourself, being responsible for who you are, and be responsible for those that are relying on you, such as your family members, and be optimistic about the future. Take some risks, but risks that you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And think big about life, have big aspirations. I always remember a boss I had years ago that said, look, when you set the high bar, then you're trying to jump that high bar. Don't set it at 2 meters, set it at 3 meters. Because if you jump it and clear 2 meters, then you've achieved something. But if you jump and you've just missed 3 meters by a couple of centimeters, you've jumped much higher. Now, you might say, well, if you set it at 3 and you jumped and failed, that's nowhere near as good as hitting at 2 and just clearing 2. Well, I disagree with that. I think set high bars, and if you don't hit them, it's better failing against a high bar than succeeding against a low bar. Stretch yourself in life to achieve the potential that is within you and the things that motivate you. And then finally, I would think I'll go back to reputation, because I'm very sensitive on the question of reputation, people's reputations. Because, and I'm thinking here in business and politics, but in a public profile sense, one of the gifts or one of the assets that you build up in life is your reputation. And it arrives on the back of a tortoise and it leaves on the back of a galloping horse, and protect it. And it goes back to being responsible, to being honest, being ethical in the way that you deal with people. It goes back to treating people the way that you would like to be treated yourself. You can't please everybody all the time, but you can respect people all the time, and you can be honest with people all the time. And I think if you have those values, then you've got a lot of the ingredients in life that will make you happy. And happiness has got nothing to do with money. It's one of going back to Adam Smith, in his theories on life, when he wrote this book called The Theory of Moral Sentiments, that people are not, I mean, who is happy just by being rich, you know? In fact, I know a lot of rich people that are deeply unhappy. A lot of people that got big cars and 2 or 3 houses, but there's something missing in their lives. There's big gaps. There's a lack of purpose, or there's something that just doesn't quite. So money and materialism can be important, but it definitely does not define happiness. And we do want to live a happy life.
You've just summed up so many invaluable pieces of wisdom of life succinctly, Joseph. Thank you. I usually like to finish the interview with 3 quick, sharp questions, and they don't take much of your time to think. It's meant to be very instinctual. So let's start. What's the top value that guides you the most?
Honesty.
Honesty.
Yes.
Beautiful. And when life gets, using your own word, noisy, what do you do to return to yourself?
I get off the dance floor onto the balcony. You know, because we spend so much of our life on the busy dance floor, and we're hustling and bustling, and we think that we're on the dance floor, we're doing something, but it's really important in life to take time on the balcony, to reflect, to take stock of things, to think clearly about things, and to adapt or adjust as you might need to. So time on the balcony is really important.
Oh, that sounds very beautiful and tempting. And would you quickly give us 2 examples of your balcony?
Well, one is I like walking, and my favorite place in the world, I said London is where my home is, but my favorite place in the world is Queenstown in New Zealand. I like going there as often as I can. I like walking in the hills. I can walk for hours and hours and hours. It's very tranquil. There's beautiful scenery, beautiful countryside, very clean and quiet. And so reflecting on things, sometimes without planning, you get a brilliant idea. And actually that brilliant idea might come from listening to a song or listening to a podcast. I listen a lot to Gabor Mate.
Yes.
Who's just a beautiful, beautiful human being. And always whenever I listen to Gabor Mate, I'm left with at least 2 or 3 thought-provoking remarks that make me think, wow, I hadn't really seen things that way. So
that deserves another conversation.
It does.
Yeah. And second balcony for you?
Oh, I think with friends, enjoying a dinner with a nice glass of red wine, talking about a whole wide range of issues. I particularly enjoy people that can talk about a broad range of issues and can join dots about how things are connected. So I think time with friends, I do that. And then there's a third balcony. No, third. Did you say a third?
Balcony, yeah.
Third balcony. Oh, it's my passion for soccer, which I talked about right back at the beginning. I mean, I follow Scottish and English soccer religiously. I get up 1 a.m., 2 a.m. every Sunday morning to watch a match, which is played Saturday afternoon in Britain. It's a great escapism for me.
Being in the moment.
In the moment, but it's just I love sport, and for me, my main sport is soccer, and I love the competition, the emotions, the passion, the highs and the lows, just the whole buzz of it. It's for me, it's just a wonderful escapism.
And lastly, but also very importantly, what is a life well lived for Joseph?
A life well lived. Well, I think it's a life where I've fulfilled the things that I wanted to do. It's the things that I've set my heart on doing, and at least I've tried. I mentioned earlier that I would much sooner try and fail than not try at all, and I deeply, deeply, deeply mean that. It's not necessarily a risk appetite that works with everybody. But I would much sooner try and fail than not try at all. Because I don't want, as I said earlier, the one thing that I do not want to be plagued with in later years is a life of a regret that I didn't do something that I should have done or that I wanted to do. I'd much prefer trying and failing. I'd much prefer the 3-meter bar than jumping the 2-meter bar.
Well, thank you so much, Joseph. It's been such a wonderful time spent with you. And I now, after a conversation with you, I feel wiser, lighter, more motivated, purposeful, and cheekier. And most of all, I feel grateful to have got to know you a bit more. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Zen. I've enjoyed our discussion.
Seven conversations, 28 pieces of music, and more truth than I expected from extraordinary people who were brave enough to let us in. What I know now that I didn't know when I began is that the music someone holds dear and near doesn't just tell you who they are. It tells you what they've survived, what they believe, and what they are still reaching for. That is what season 1 gave me. I hope it gave you something too. Now, I want to hear from you. Who should be sitting in this chair for season 2? Which leader, which human being do you believe carries music worth hearing and a story worth sharing? Leave your nomination in the comments. Find me on my website, www.zenzeng.net. Tell me their name and tell me why. And while you're there, I'd love to know which moment from this season stayed with you, which conversation opened something, which piece of music sent you somewhere unexpected. Your voice matters here. This show is a conversation and you've always been part of it. Season 2 is brewing. Until then, keep listening to the music and to yourself. I'm Zen. This has been Crescendo Conversations, where high achievement meets unfiltered humanity.